Hi, my name is Simona. I am the Global Admin Officer for ETAC and I work with the global team. And today we'll be having a training session with David Kilgour. Welcome, David. Thank you for joining us today. You have led a prestigious and important life as a diplomat in the Canadian government since 1979. During your time in Parliament, you were Deputy Speaker and Chair of the Committees of the Whole House, Secretary of State for Latin America and Africa, and Secretary of State for the Asia Pacific. We have a number of questions for you today from advocates that range from first impressions and communication protocols through to advice on strategy. So thank you for joining us. We really appreciate your help with this training. So the first question is, what is the best practice for setting up a meeting with a diplomat or member of government? Is it better to arrange a meeting beforehand via email, or are cold calls or dropping into the electoral office acceptable as well?
Every culture is different, every government is different, and every attitudes are different. In Canada, and I think probably in Australia and other countries, the US, I've been in a lot of MPs' offices. You're best if you're a constituent. That's the best way to get in, is to phone up the member of parliament and say, I live in your riding, and tell the constituent assistant, you will not speak to the member. Somebody will answer the phone in most cases for them. So you've got to make a good impression on that person, that you're sincere, that you're not a crank, all this kind of thing. And the best is just to say that, you know, I'm so-and-so, I live in the riding. That's the key phrase, that you live in the constituency and that you'd like to come and see the member. In Canada, you would probably get to see the member for 15 minutes. They give 15-minute appointments, most members' offices. But you might have to wait a week or two or perhaps longer to do that. If it's in the US, you in all likelihood will not see the member of Congress, you'll see the assistant. And that's just a cultural thing too. But roll with the punches, go and see whoever you can. And but if the person isn't taking notes of what you're saying, that's definitely a bad sign that they're not taking it as seriously as you'd like. So take in some papers and keep to your time, get right to the point. Don't talk about the weather. Just get right to the point.
Right. So efficient and concise. Got it.
And don't go wearing a t-shirt, because that shows you're not taking them seriously. Dress up to go to do it is probably a good advice too.
Wonderful. We have a question about that a little later on, so I might get you to expand a little on that once we get to it. Now, if arranging the meeting beforehand and we have a list of questions, should we send a copy of these questions prior to the meeting?
No, definitely not. Because you're just going to cause them to pull their hair out if they think they have to prepare answers to all these questions. So don't put any burden on them when you go in. Go in as if it's going to be a pleasant 15-minute visit. And don't get expectations up too high either.
If we are communicating with their secretary or advisor, how much information should we be giving them about the issue over the phone? Should we brief the secretary or advisor on the phone, or only speak to the member of government in person?
No, the person you have to make a good impression on is the person you're talking to on the phone. That may sound strange, but I think it's true. And you have to win them over first, or you probably won't even get to meet the member if they think that you're not serious. So best behavior when you're talking on the phone or by email, and you should always make it clear what you want. I'm a constituent. I have a real concern with X, Y, or organ pillaging in China or whatever it is, and I'd like to come and see you. The trouble is sometimes when you identify the issue, the member's assistant decides that's not his or her responsibility. Therefore, we will not meet with you. And so it's a bit tricky. You could just say, I have a serious international issue I want to come and see the member about. And by not getting too specific, your chances of seeing them might be better. But you kind of have to play that by ear. Because and of course, some members of parliament or diplomats are much more thorough and hardworking than others, I'm sorry to say. And so and their staffs tend to reflect that. So you got to get as far as you can with the person on the phone or you're dealing with by email. In terms of going email first and then phone, I don't think it makes a huge difference, but don't send them 20 pages in an email because that'll just convince them that they don't want to see you. Try to make it as easy as you can to get in the door. That's the hard part. And if you're calling a diplomat, and I must say I've had some unpleasant experiences with your Foreign Affairs Department on this issue, because they got us to see the Assistant Deputy Minister for Asia rather than the human rights person. And there was a huge clash between the two of them. And eventually we walked down with the human rights person. She was completely on our side, but her boss was completely against us and did us no harm, did us a lot of harm, actually.
Okay.
But always be pleasant, always be polite. And it's best if you take in something that maybe a page or two that kind of summarizes the issues and is absolutely accurate. If there's one mistake in it, what they'll focus on. Everything you say and hand them has to be 100% accurate.
In terms of now the attire, does it matter how I present myself for the meeting? For example, if I'm not a business person, should I still dress in business attire? Will it affect what the diplomat or member of government thinks of me and the issue? And could it be damaging if I don't dress in a particular way?
Yeah, it's a good question. My sort of instinctive answer would be to dress up, because I know Australians are probably more casual than Canadians too. So it's our climate. But no, I would definitely dress up because that shows you've taken the trouble to put on a dress or a suit or something. And this is such an important issue. It's probably worth the extra effort to do that.
I guess it could also show respect in a way that you respect
Exactly,
them setting aside time for you. And regarding the conversational style while in the meeting, how formal and professional should our interaction and tone be? Is there value in keeping it either casual or formal?
Well, yeah, I wouldn't worry about being formal. Don't go into a 15-minute speech. And remember, the other side should be doing half the talking. So now, normally, if you're going to see somebody, they expect you to start the discussion and go through it, and then there are questions afterwards. But the onus is on you to give a concise, courteous description of the problem. And as I said before, if they don't write down a thing you say, that's a very bad sign. Even if you're meeting with a member or a diplomat, they should be writing stuff down. It's just good. It's just respect, really, if nothing else. And if nobody's taking any notes, it's all the more important that you take some text in with you or some statements in with you that are the best possible sources you can get.
Leading on from that, if a diplomat or member of government is clearly not interested, what should we do?
That's a tough one. I have found that you keep trying for a bit, and if after 2 or 3 tries you can see they're not the slightest bit interested and they're gazing out the window, then you should probably just get up and say thank you very much, and I'll go elsewhere, or make it clear that you're very unhappy with what they've done. And that, for an elected person, that might get them to smarten up, but it might not. But yeah, don't stay with somebody who you can see has no interest in the issue. Just say, I'm sorry, I have to leave.
If a diplomat or member of government asks questions about evidence that we cannot answer, what is the best course of action to take?
Well, one of the things you can do is refer them to the ETAC website. There's a huge amount of material on that. There's a huge amount of material on my website about this issue. I have a section for the Uyghurs, and I have a section on organ pillaging from Falun Gong. So there's a mountain of material on the ETAC website, or mine, or I don't think David Matus has a website, but there's no shortage of. You could even take in some links with you. Go through the ETAC website or something and pick out items that you think would be, for example, in the case of Australia, pick out items that relate to Australia. That's probably the best thing.
Now that we have your valuable advice on first impressions, let's move on to advice for addressing the issue. So should we plan what action we want the government to take before we meet the representative, or should we just tell them about the issue and ask them how they can help?
That's a good question too. Most members of parliament will get it. Once you explain what's the problem is, they'll realize that you want to bill barring organ tourism from Australia or something. I think I've told Susie this, is that the Deputy Minister of Health actually in Brisbane told me, and someone else, I think it might have been Ethan Gutman that was there, that nobody was going from Queensland to China for organs. And she also suggested that people had stopped going from Australia to China. But I hope that's true, of course, but I don't think I think there are still people going from Canada. I can't prove it, but I would worry that people are going. So if they say to you, listen, nobody's going from Australia for organs, the answer is, well, the only way we can make sure of that is that if doctors who give aftercare have to register, Mrs. Smith comes in and you ask her, where'd you get your heart? And she has to tell you. So that's probably required by legislation. Now, I think what happens is that they do ask the post operational people do ask, but they don't have to send it to the medical board or to the Professional Medical Association. So they have it in their records, but they don't. A lot of them don't seem to do anything with it. And in the case of, for example, Japan, I think a lot of people are still going from Japan to China, and the doctors don't have to report it. Well, a lot of countries they don't have to report it. That's a huge reason why there should be a reporting requirement.
Yeah.
But yeah, and if they say, well, it's not a big issue for Australia, well, then say it should be an easy thing to pass a bill to deal with it. If it's a big issue like Japan, then it's all the more important why it be done. So you kind of have to roll with the punches. And I'd recommend that if you can get somebody, if two of you can go, it's probably better than one, because one can be making notes while the other one is, doing the talking or something. Yeah, I think two. If you can arrange it, two is definitely better than one to go.
What do you believe is the most important action for the government to take, or what the government should be taking?
Well, definitely to pass anti-organ tourism legislation, and also to require reporting of to the the provincial or the Federal Medical Association of where the organs came from. We had a big problem with that in Canada last time, and I think we all agree now that it's very important to get. So you can ask Susie this, what she thinks, but I think that's a vital requirement. Yeah, definitely, that's a vital requirement.
Is it worth the time and effort to try and get a government resolution on forced organ harvesting?
Well, resolutions don't have much impact except sort of a moral impact. A bill would be far better than, we've had all kinds of resolutions from all kinds of parliaments, and they don't amount to much. You really need I gather the best bill in the world now is, let me get this straight, the latest one. I think Belgium has passed one quite recently, if I'm not mistaken, but the best bill is the Taiwanese bill, I believe. They've done the most things in their bill, I think, well, somebody else has done it. Certainly the Taiwanese bill is the one that for a long time was the very best. Doctors can lose their right to practice, they can be fined, all kinds of things can happen under their legislation.
So when trying to get an organ harvesting bill started in our region, should we just approach individual MPs and senators, or should we approach certain government committees?
All of the above. Go and talk to somebody who's sympathetic in the parliament and get his or her advice as to what's better. Because it depends on when the elections are coming and these issues. There are a bunch of issues. And if you get an individual, make sure you get somebody who's respected by all sides of the house, of the floor. Because if you get somebody, for example, who's doing business with China or something, well, you wouldn't get somebody like that. But make sure that the people you choose to carry your cause are respected people. Yeah, you can really hurt yourself if you get someone that's not respected. But I would go after the individual members. I'd go after the parties. I'd go after the leaders. I'd go after people with an interest in human rights. Basically, there's no one model that works best everywhere. It varies with the individuals, who the advocates are. You can't. What David Matus and I did last time in our parliament is we went to see a Senate committee, and they asked us questions, and the Senate got on side, and they started the bill in the Senate, and then it went to the House. The problem was there was a slight difference between the bill in the Senate and the one in the House, and they have to be identical when they come out, same as your parliament, I think. And there was a big, long delay in trying to get the two bills to be made the same in substance. So that's something you can do.
And finally, do you think governments should enact laws to stop universities and hospitals from collaborating with China in relation to transplant medicine?
Oh, definitely. And yeah, what they do is they train the surgeons. I think both in Australia and the US and Canada and no doubt others too. But why on earth should we be training people to in effect commit murder? Because that's what they're doing. And the evidence is just, as you know, mammoth about that. It's just a form of murder. It's not a form of medicine. Murder for profit. So yeah, definitely they shouldn't be. But I think you've got a couple of hospitals. What's his name? The doctor in Australia who yeah, no, I definitely feel that's outrageous that they should be conspiring on this. Is that okay? Is that enough?
Yeah. Thank you so much, David. We appreciate your valuable insight and advice. This is going to act as a great guide for anybody needing to contact, people of government or local council or, yeah.
Well, thank you. I'm very happy to do this with you.